Welcome back to FilmFloggers. We review films and flog dead horses, so you don't have to. Is this week's film choice a complete waste of your viewing time? Much like flogging/beating dead horses, get it? Please head over to www.filmfloggers.com to check out all of our previous floggings. And while you're there, maybe hang out for a while, look around and vote for our next film. Click on vote, or visit www.filmfloggers.com/vote. Are you an idiot? If so, please check out our Idiot's Guide to Reviewing Us, where even a big dummy like you can leave us a red-hot review. Here at FilmFloggers, we pride ourselves on offering 1-star content with 5-star effort. Once on the website, please click on Idiot's Guide, or visit us at www.filmfloggers.com/review-us. That should have been Idiot's Guide. My fault, I didn't change the URL. Annoying. Once again, filmfloggers.com/review-us. Believe it or not, we now have a Patreon. I know what you're thinking. You have the audacity to ask us to pay to receive more of this. Pause for dramatic effect. Yes. We have a Patreon exclusive show called Nitpickers. I think you'll like it. Please visit www.filmfloggers.com/support-us. Again, that hyphen is annoying, should have removed it. Or head straight to our Patreon page. Patreon.com/filmwafflers. No idea why I did film wafflers. Another mistake. Where you can support us for as little as £1 British or $1.50. And while you're on the website, punch that big purple subscribe button and tell a friend about the vlog. Wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, mistress, your nan, granddad, your kids. They can tell their friends. They can tell their friends at school about the vlog. But in all seriousness, this really helps the podcast grow and enables us to enrich or ruin the lives of the hundreds of millions of earlobes we haven't reached yet.
That'll work. There we go.
Nailed it.
Lovely. Lovely. All right, we'll crack on. Right, hello, Ben.
Hello, Tom.
Hello. We're doing some, Halloween theme still. We're doing some Curse of Frankenstein, 1957. Now, is this, just to confirm, this is part of the Hammer. Is this a Hammer horror?
This is a Hammer horror, yes. Yes, yeah. This is their first colour horror film.
Oh, right.
So
really?
There was a lot of hoo-ha around this because of the gore and the violence. Critics were, they were disgusted by it.
Really?
They couldn't believe what they were seeing.
So this was in the 50s. Got Christopher Lee, who was a bit of a Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, who are the sort of the darlings of the brand, aren't they? Really? I mean, are they in most of these?
So I don't think this was the first film they appeared in together, but I believe this was the first Hammer film they were in together.
This was their first Hammer?
I'm not sure. They may have been in other Hammer films, possibly, but I think this is their first Hammer film together, and this was the start of the relationship. Because after this came Dracula, The Mummy, various Frankenstein sequels, which I don't think Christopher Lee's in, but yeah, this started the period of domination for Hammer and Cushing and Lee. They really started to clean up after this.
Well, so when I was younger, I remember some of these Hammer horror films used to be on TV very late, 3 a.m. sometimes. And I recorded a few of them. I think the one that I remember the most was a mummy. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a mummy type.
Oh, yes. Was it in black and white, or was it a colour experience?
It was black and white.
Black
and white mummy arrangement.
That would be the original Universal Pictures one.
Quite likely.
Yes.
And so I know you've been getting very much into these Hammers recently. You've been talking a lot about Peter Cushing. You've been talking a lot about this. And you said, we have to do one of these. And I've been a little bit not wary, because I know that they are the ultimate, that this is where a lot of this horror stuff started. You can trace a lot of stuff in modern day horror back to these films. But I was a little bit reluctant to go back. But yeah, well, so The Curse of Frankenstein, I thought it was very good. I thought even for a film that wasn't, take the sort of daftness out of it, I actually thought like some of the themes in it, the writing, the acting, I thought Peter Cushing was brilliant. I thought it was very good. I thought it was a very strong film. Even for you could almost extend that past, for non-horror fans. I think there's some interesting themes here about research and the nature of research and what the lifestyle of someone who spends their life in academia is like, as reflected through this German illustrious researcher who visits the manor and ends up being killed and his brain then stolen for the Frankenstein creature. But I just thought like the way that academia's talked about was very interesting. The way Peter Cushing becomes obsessed with his creation and how he takes on this sort of god role and gets totally carried away with it. I thought that was quite genuinely I thought he was quite genuinely unhinged in this.
Also quite likeable though, wasn't he? You weren't rooting for him, but you were like,
no,
I like Peter. He's nice.
Well, he's obviously one of these who's extremely bright. He's the brightest guy there, so which gives him an element of sort of charisma. He's charming. Like all these women like him. And you can see why. He's very charming. He's charismatic. He's intelligent. But he's basically by the end a complete madman. And the way his character completely turns to the point where I think at one point, and we'll get into it, but the way he starts talking to his maids is like genuinely really grim and really horrible. And then you've got Christopher Lee doing the Frankenstein thing, which it's effective. For me, it's not the thing about this that makes me really excited, but it still holds up. I mean, Christopher Lee with that makeup on does look grim, and his movements.
Yeah, I read something that Christopher Lee tried to base his performance on the idea of being on strings, like a puppet. He's him being controlled by someone else controlling his movements. Sort of wobbling all over the place.
Like something else is controlling his arms.
Yeah, and he looks like he's sort of a wounded animal, isn't he? He's just sort of limping along, and it's like, God, someone needs to put that fucking thing out of his misery. Dear God, what's it doing? That doesn't look well, what that thing is.
No.
I do find the scene in the woods when he's floating around the woods with the massive coat on, it's like, there he is.
Yeah.
With that hairdo as well, it's like... But it's I'm not looking at it going like, fucking hell, what a load of shit that is. It's still like, oh Christ, there he is. Makeup looks good.
Yeah.
He's huge as well, Christopher Lee. He has a presence. And I think one of the reasons he was hired for this role is because he was so tall. I think if I saw him in the woods, I'd be like, oh dear.
Yeah. Yeah, agree.
I think I'll be going over here.
Even without the clay face makeup, you'd still be thinking, oh Jesus, I need to get out of the way.
I think they wanted to follow the 31 Frankenstein. The Universal Pictures one. I think they wanted to follow that.
I haven't seen that.
Well, it's good. But it's the original, flat forehead, fucking bolts come out the neck, which I think is fine. It's not. I know that's how you would deem. That's when you think about Frankenstein's monster. That's what you look at and think, oh yeah, bolts, flat forehead. I'm so glad that we didn't get that because this is more realistic. I think he's made of several different body parts. He's a monster. He's been cobbled together, stitched up. Well, he's going to look like a mess. This whole flat forehead and these bolts is like, well...
Yeah, how the hell would they get to that? Yeah,
it's fun, but it's not how I think Frankenstein's monster should really look like.
No. I was immediately sort of... My expectations were totally... Well, I don't know what you'd say. Like, I just didn't... I didn't realise what I was getting until the bit where you see Frankenstein starting to collect all these body parts, so he's going to mortuaries, he's going to all these places... And he's collecting body parts, and I thought, this is actually quite grim. I mean, even though it's not overly explicit, you're not seeing, any unnecessary detail, but it is just the idea of it and the way it's played. You just think, okay, well, this is actually pretty dark. This isn't just a daft sort of, it's not Christopher Lee wandering around his manor, as Dracula. It's genuinely quite grotesque what's going on. I mean, it's quite sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque. In terms of how grotesque and how mad it is. I think it's like, so what is it? Ben is tutor. Is that his name?
Paul.
Yeah.
Paul. Ben.
Yeah, it's Ben.
Bit of Ben.
Yeah. So Paul, he starts off being his tutor, so they're obviously sort of academic equivalents, and they experiment together. But you can just see from the moment that they're able to bring the dog or whatever it is back to life, you can see Paul is very much aware of what the limitations of this are, and where that they should take it to these institutes and write papers on it and reveal their creation, which is what actually then the German researcher who visits the manor, he then comes back to, because he says something along the lines of if you're an academic, you spend all your time in ignorance, trying to find a solution, and then the moment you do, you hand it over to the relevant authority or the relevant, academic body, and then it's mishandled. And then while it's being mishandled, you're basically sent back into the dark again to find the next thing. And but Paul very much sees it as his responsibility to go and show the people what they've done. Whereas old Victor, he wants to cling on to this and basically take it to its very extreme. So there's the divergence immediately between the two of them. So you think, okay, this Victor guy is clearly there's a lot of like hubris. He's obviously quite, well, yeah, you just sort of get the sense that this is the bloke who could really go completely turbo with this.
Well, Paul just ends up being a bit of a killjoy, doesn't he? Peter Cushing is very likeable. You kind of going like, oh, what can he create? How far can he take this? Oh, yeah. I'm pretty excited. And all that Paul guy ends up doing is just, when Elizabeth comes into the picture again, she moves in. He just keeps running up and down the stairs, just going, Elizabeth, you've got to leave this place. Yeah. I implore you to get out of here. She's just like, no, I'm just here for Victor. I'm sure whatever he's doing is fine. That's all he ends up doing, which is fine. But that's what his character becomes. It just becomes, he sacks it off. He goes, whatever you're doing, Victor, I can't have any part of this. This is grotesque what you're doing. You're creating a monster. And then he keeps sort of popping back again. He's like, Paul, come have a look at this. Come have a quick look. Oh, fine, Victor. Yeah, I'll have a look. Oh, my God.
I'm disgusted.
And it just runs down the stairs. Elizabeth, you must leave this time.
Yeah.
Oh, when's Victor come down for dinner? No!
Yeah.
You're always going to get two opposing forces who initially are thinking of all these bright ideas and like, oh, my God, we can change the world. And you've got someone who, like Victor, who's like, no, there's more to this. Let's not give this to the world yet. I've dedicated X amount of years to this already. I want to keep going. I want to see how far I can push this. I don't think for Victor, it was ever about giving it to the world. I don't think he gives a shit about giving it to the world. And I think that's what ultimately is his downfall. And I think that's what, by the end of the last sort of sequel, when he's older and matured and he's reflecting on his life somewhat, I haven't seen it, but I think that's the theme where he sits there and goes, well, what have I actually got from this? I've spent my whole life trying to build this perfect human. And I've just built various different monsters, and it's always gone tits up. As intelligent as I am, could I not have done? I probably could have done a bit. I could have probably done a lot more, to be honest, or just maybe moved on from this obsession.
Well, I don't know whether that. I mean, maybe I've misunderstood the ending, but the way I sort of interpreted it, obviously, he at one point gets threatened by his maid, who was his mistress. That she's going to reveal to the authorities what he's doing and the fact that she's pregnant and all this. And he effectively sort of lures her into the chamber where the Frankenstein's monster's waiting. And then he shuts the door and allows the Frankenstein monster basically to dispatch with her. And at the end of the film, whenever he's pleading with Paul to tell the authorities, verify my story, tell them that I didn't actually kill her. Tell them that it was this monster because you're the only person who saw it. Paul basically he's unwilling to do that because fundamentally, like, that Frankenstein's monster was just an extension of Victor. Actually, like, that's just his own. He didn't create that Frankenstein's monster to serve for other purposes. He didn't do it to try and create something good. He created it basically as an ego trip. That was almost an extension of his own ego. Therefore, if Frankenstein's monster kills her, he's effectively killed her.
Yeah, well, he just went too far, didn't he? Paul kills the monster, and then fucking Victor's back out there with the shovel digging it back up again. And he's like, oh man, how many times can we do this?
Yeah.
Like, you've done it again. The biggest difference between this one and the Universal Pictures one is the idea that Frankenstein himself is the monster.
Right.
So it's focused on Victor as being the monster. So Frankenstein in the original, the Frankenstein's monster, is the monster, and Victor's just the guy who's created it, and it's, he just wanted to see what he could do.
He was just like, oh God, it's gone out of hand.
Yeah.
Right.
And then this grotesque monster comes to life, and it's like, oh my God, he's hideous. Oh my God. I'm not sure that you feel sorry for Victor, but it's like, oh, well, he was just experimenting, like he didn't mean for this to happen. The real monster is Victor, who just keeps pushing his luck and just won't give up on it.
I think it's also, but I mean, that the idea of Frankenstein's monster being, the monster, and Victor being a poor, someone who the whole thing's just run away from him. But that's a lot less challenging than this, because in this, you have this thing where, there are scenes where Christopher Lee's chained up, and like you say, he's like a wounded animal, and he's walking around, and he's completely, his master is Victor, and like there is something quite grim about seeing. I mean, I know, he is a monster, but he still he is sort of human-like in his form. There is something grotesque about seeing a man basically chained up, sitting down on order, and, basically behaving like an animal. And I mean, it's, we see it in modern day horror, anything where you see people in chains treated like that, treated like animals. I mean, for example, there's something like Martyrs, taking it to its extreme, where, that effectively features someone who's chained up, who's been deprived of, sunlight for years and has, a thing nailed onto their head. That scene wherever, do you know which scene I'm referring to? Where she finds her, takes her into the bath and pulls this contraption off her head, and she's like, absolutely, it's grotesque. And this must be the first time something like this has sort of been explored. This idea you've got a man chained and he's like treated like an animal. I mean, it's actually pretty grim and heavy. I thought it was anyway.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think that kind of links in with one of the biggest themes running through this film and, well, pretty much all the Frankenstein films, is the idea and the theme of morality. Again, touching on one of the sequels briefly. I haven't seen this one. I've seen the second one, but I haven't seen, that's it. So I haven't seen, there's one where it's called Frankenstein Creates Woman. I think it's maybe the fourth one.
Is this a hammer?
This is all Hammer, yeah. So this is all Hammer. This is Terence Fisher, the director of this, did all of them bar the third one, which I think was actually a bit of a dud.
Okay.
So I think the ones after, not as good as this, I don't think, but the second one's pretty good, and then the other ones after the third one are good in their own right. I think the fourth one, he creates a woman monster, but it introduces the idea of giving them a soul. The whole metaphysical stuff comes into play about, can you give someone, consciousness, identity, all this sort of stuff, which I think that sounds very interesting. I'd like to see that because that sounds pretty interesting. And even though that's not really talked about, that's kind of the idea, isn't it? You can create this thing, this being, but you can't give it a soul, or like what actually is it? It's just a shell made up of several different parts with a damaged brain as well. And like, what do you expect to happen with it? I guess in some ways that works on many levels, doesn't it? Where what do you do after you've reached or you've achieved the seemingly impossible? In this case, you've brought life to someone who's dead. When you've reached a milestone, what do you do next? Like in this case, they revive the dog. Great success. Let's get the papers going. Paul's really happy with himself, but Victor's like, no, hang on. No, this is not enough. I think Paul says it as well. He just goes, look, at the end of the day, Victor, like, you can do all this shit, but how's it going to end? It's not going to end well, is it?
I think that's a direct quote for the film, isn't it? Yeah, that's a good bit. It's a bit jarring, actually, in the context of everything else.
I wish I would have wrote down more quotes, because there is a lot of good stuff, especially from Paul.
Brilliant.
Because every time Paul comes back up the stairs,
oh yeah,
to then be presented with the latest bit of junk that Victor's been putting together, it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, Victor, not again, Victor, Christ.
Well, he says something like a benevolent mind, impresses a benevolent look on the face or something. I can't. So it's almost like if he's grotesque, but if he's got a benevolent mind, then that'll, soften his
that's
face
the thing.
In some
ways, it's a shame that the brain is damaged.
Yeah,
because it's like, well, yeah,
I know.
And it's sort of, he even says, Victor says, I'll just do it again. I'll get another brain, and I'll get another one, and I'll get another one. It's just like, well, Victor, why don't you just start again then? I just don't get why he becomes obsessed with this one monster. Just do it again. And Victor's got a bit of a bee in his bonnet when it comes to Paul and the fact that the reason this isn't working and the creature's in the state it is because he's the one who's damaged the brain. So he damaged it initially in the crypt, and then obviously he shoots him, which has damaged it further. And basically it's all Paul's fault. This one would have worked perfectly, but because you fucked it up. And I like how he brings Paul in again, and he gets the creature, gets the monster to stand up and come towards him and sit back down. And that Paul guy just like sniffs at him and just goes, "Oh, this is your creature of superior intellect, huh? The perfect human or something. Why don't you ask him a question on advanced physics, see how he gets on?" And you just see Victor's just like, starts to quiver and like his head starts to go.
Yeah.
He's absolutely enraged.
Well, he's obsessed with the idea of destroying it. I mean, that's the ultimate thing that he's, he just can't bring himself to destroy them all. He has to just try and improve it. He's almost, he doesn't want to have to.
I guess he's made that, so he just needs to dig it back up again, bring it back, and then just try and get another brain. I guess we can't say it's a shame, but that's the one thing. It's like, well, if the brain was intact,
then the thing might actually function.
Yeah, what would have happened? And again, without seeing all the sequels, I'm assuming we get a bit more of that, where people are a bit more intact, and then of course other things go wrong.
But it's a good the Frankenstein idea it's a good vehicle to explore things like, the soul and, what does it mean to be a human in quite a non sort of annoying, laboured way. And it's, it's good. I mean, like you touched on there, the script's great. The way the characters. I mean, I know we're probably in. I don't know when this would be set. Is this like 19th century? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like 1860s.
1860s, and just the way the way the people are dressed, the way they talk. Like, it's just so nice to hear people talk like that. Just in really sort of like proper English. Oh no! So like at one point, like. Victor, having killed his maid, is sitting at breakfast with old Elizabeth, and it's all this, oh, darling, pass the marmalade. Yeah, thank you. And she goes, where on earth is such and such? We haven't seen her for days. And he's like, I suspect some Lothario is eloped with her. She always was a very romantic young thing, and all this. It's just great. Like, it's just nice to hear that.
Yeah. Well, it's an odd mix, isn't it? It's like an exploitation horror, for this time anyway, in the 50s, mixed with like a period piece, with people walking around with the Victorian dresses on, just going,
I know.
Hello, nice to see you. Take a seat, please.
And like there's that bit as well, like, and that there is a bit of humour in it. There's that scene where he throws a party at the house, and there's that bloke who's clearly, an old alcoholic, and he's like standing over the punch bowl on his own. And he's like pouring himself glass after glass of this punch, and every time he does, he like toasts to the bride and groom, to the bridesmaids, and he's like trying to justify his topping up of his glass, with like he's rehearsing his speech for the wedding, and it's just like it's good, like and like I say, whenever you get that sort of very well established researcher academic the German. The way he talks and reflects on his career is it's really well written and thoughtful. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know kind of what. Yeah, it's just a lot better than I thought. It's just a lot more rich than I thought it was going to be.
Well, because it's not silly, is it? I'm assuming you expect it to be a bit silly. Silly gore.
I thought it was going to be absolutely ridiculous.
People prancing around.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee, the monster, looks fucking stupid. And, we can appreciate stuff being practical. That's not a problem. Like, it's not about like, we need some more explosions.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that monster looks stupid. I need some CGI on that immediately.
Yeah.
So we can appreciate practical stuff and it being a bit campy. But it's actually not that at all. And as you said, the theme running through it and the ideas explored are quite unsettling.
Yeah,
They're actually quite unnerving. You're like, this is...
Yeah, they're grotesque, some of them.
This is horrible. And the fact that Peter Cushing is so likeable. Again, you're not rooting for Peter Cushing, but you're like, oh, well, mate, man, maybe digging back up to see what you can do next.
Yeah. Because he's just got that charisma, and it comes from that, really intelligent, really passionate. There's nothing more infectious than someone who's passionate, and he's got both. He's got passion and he's got intelligence, and he's also got a slight unhinged, slightly unhinged element to his character. So overall, those three together, he's a very charismatic guy. I mean, at the end, whenever he's pleading, it goes... Effectively, the whole thing is set up that at the beginning of the film, someone, a doctor or whoever it is, or a priest, goes to visit him in jail, where he's basically on death row, and he then tells his story. And at the end, you return back to the cell, and he's that's basically... So the film that's played out is him. He's retold all of this through to the priest, and then he says to the priest, do you believe me? And the priest doesn't believe him. And then his friend Paul comes to visit him, and he goes, oh, Paul's here, he can vouch for me, he can confirm everything I've said. And he's pleading with Paul to say, tell them and prove that I'm not mad and that it wasn't me who killed the maid. And when he's pleading with him and Paul's not gonna say anything, it's pretty grim. I mean, he has a full blown breakdown, and it's very well acted. I mean, it's not campy.
And again, you're like fucking hell, Paul.
I know.
Come on, Paul.
There's an element of that, isn't there? But actually, I felt the same. But actually, no, it's absolutely right, because that he did kill her. The Frankenstein's an extension of him, so he did kill her. And then you just get the final shot of them walking towards the gallows. I mean, it's a real shocker. I mean, it is a shocker.
Well, does he escape, mate? Does he escape? Is he in the
Well,
sequel?
He might do, but for as far as this film's concerned, that's it. And that, the credits roll, to the silhouette of the gallows in the background. And I mean, it's a shocker. It's bleak. The themes are bleak. The themes are heavy. You could take a number of these themes and take them to their natural conclusion, and you'd end up with, a Cronenberg, or you'd end up with a Martyrs.
Well, you can tell by the quality of this film that this put Hammer horror on the map.
Oh, yeah.
After this comes out, everyone's like, well, yeah, where these people go, and this is pretty good.
Well, yeah, we've got to see what they're doing next.
You know, but Hammer itself, Cushing, Lee, and, you know, for the next 10, 15 years, that they were just loading up on these two and horror. It was just, like, what a period. You know, we're talking about, you know, horror films these days, you know, what we're looking at. And yeah, there's some interesting ones, but this sort of 15 to 20 year period. And obviously you had that back in the 20s and 30s, maybe a little bit 40s, but there was definitely a lull in maybe sort of the 40s and early 50s of horror films just weren't getting done.
Well, it's wartime, isn't it? And people didn't want horror.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, the quality had dipped somewhat. This was a
return to form.
And the quality of films after this were just unbelievable. You know, I don't know how many you've seen, but you mentioned The Mummy, but that would have been I think the Bela Lugosi one.
I think
the Universal Pictures one. So you got The Mummy. Christopher Lee pops up again as The Mummy. Well, yeah, of course. Perfect. It's the same stuff, but he's just wrapped in tissue.
But is it the same in terms of its richness of theme?
It's
or is it more just a bloke literally sort of mincing around going, oh?
It's maybe The Mummy. Like
it's fun, but like The Mummy, I don't think really has that much kind of like real world wide application.
No, but it's the idea of this mummy's. I guess it's like, you know, disturbing the dead, isn't it? So there's this mummy that's been dead for 1,000 years, and this guy's got the book, and he's manipulating the mummy. It's like, I guess you could look at it and go, well, just, you know, let the dead lie type thing.
Okay,
but
fine.
I don't think you can get. No, it's not exploring stuff like this. No, Dracula, of course.
I've seen. So no, that's the one. I've seen that. I have seen that. That's Dracula.
Yeah, I think Dracula came out
around the manor.
Yeah, he came out maybe the year after this, which again is yeah, as I said, it's maybe sides a bit more on the campiness, but it's still like there's still.
Oh yeah, still good stuff in it. Absolutely, yeah.
The idea of Van Helsing and Dracula, and that's explored probably in a few different horror films and different characters, different opposing characters where, you know, Van Helsing, Dracula, they're not actually that different. They're just on the extreme ends of the spectrum, you know, evil and good.
Yes.
But fundamentally, they're actually quite similar.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera, decent.
I haven't seen that.
The Curse of the Werewolf, Terence Fisher did that. That's pretty good. You know, I think we were talking about doing a werewolf film. Oliver Reed is in that. Again, the makeup
really?
looks fucking just unbelievable.
Is Oliver Reed the guy with, you know, basically alcoholic? Is he in like Women in Love and all that stuff?
Yeah. The guy who died sort of halfway through
He's
Gladiator.
nuts, isn't he, that bloke?
Yeah, I think he was quite the character, yeah.
I think he was a nut job.
Yeah, he's pretty he's perfect in The Curse of the Werewolf. Yeah, he looks like someone you wouldn't muck about with.
No.
When he's got the fur on, it's like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's good. He's selling that.
Well, he looks like a werewolf anyway. He's a very hairy bloke. Can I just interject? Because I actually watched an Oliver Reed horror recently, which I wouldn't mind just explore very briefly.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to have to just get this on the old... Is he in the Brood? Oh, he's in the Brood, look. You keep it going, Ben. I'm just going to find this.
Well, I'm interested to hear what it was about, yeah.
Burnt Offerings.
Burnt Offerings?
Have you ever heard of that? Yeah.
Don't think so, no. Yeah.
He basically moves it. You know, America. Him and his wife and young son move into a house that's, of course, haunted.
Oh yes.
But he's kind of plagued by this dream that he had when he was young, and he's at a funeral or something, and he sees a hearse roll past, and there's a bloke with a very pale face looking at him, and he sort of gets these visions again, and you know, it's obviously the house is alive in some way, and it plays out, but it's pretty unpleasant actually, and. You know, and the ending is extremely nihilistic and bleak. You know, they're not interested in turning it round. You know, right. It's a real shocker. But Oliver Reed, of course, because he's quite a nervy kind of tense bloke anyway. He seems to be sort of almost on a knife edge. He's good at that because he's that sort of slightly sort of Jack Nicholson in The Shining level of unhinged, which he plays quite well. Sorry, anyway, completely random.
Yeah, put it on the list. Put it on the bloody list.
1976, I think that one.
Oh right, yeah.
It's these gems from, you know, the 70s, and you know, going back even further.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You know, we've spent plenty of time sitting here moaning about horror films and moaning.
I know,
about,
yeah.
You know, we just can't find one.
I know.
They're all shit.
You've got to go back. You've got to go back, with the exception, of course, of things like Hereditary, which you talked about, and you know, there have been some great ones. And I mean, also something like I thought, It Comes at Night was very good.
Yeah, I wasn't. No, it was good. I wasn't like as bowled over as I was hoping to be, I think.
Okay, fine.
It was there was some good stuff in there. Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was a pretty a very effective bleak, you know.
Oh, very bleak, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very bleak.
Well, mate, you know, compared to the Curse of Frankenstein, I'm not too sure.
No, well, it's not as theme rich, but it's well made, it's well done. But yeah, I mean, you know, have you got anything else you want to say about this one?
Well, not really. I suppose I've got a bit about Paul and stuff, and how he just spends the film, as I think I spoke about, you know, chowing down on Elizabeth, and I think Elizabeth's in this. She's just a bit character. She turns up and she says, "I'm moving in now," and that's kind of the point. But she was, I think I got her name, the actress, Hazel Court.
Yeah, I looked her up as well.
She was in a film called The Mask of the Red Death, which I saw a couple of weeks ago, which is like, yeah,
pretty good.
That's pretty good, yeah. I think Hazel Court was floating around quite a few of the Hammer films as well.
I think originally from Birmingham.
Oh, yeah. 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 It's a British film, isn't it? Or you know, filmed in the UK. Yeah. Peter Cushing was doing stuff for the BBC, I think, wasn't he? I think that's what he was doing before this. He was in an adaptation of George Orwell's 1984. I think he was doing that. Not long before doing this, I think. A couple of years before. So, you know, he was doing well for himself, more on TV, though.
He's got he's got a very identifiable look. I mean, when he's got the beard at the end and he's looking a bit dishevelled in the jail cell, I think he looks a bit like Charles Dance.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He does a bit, doesn't he? You wouldn't be surprised if you found out that he was actually, you know, Charles Dance. Is it Dance or Duns? It's Dance.
No, I think it's Dance, yeah.
He, you know, if old Charles Dance was his son, you know, you wouldn't be surprised, would you?
No.
He's got the same face. I know, that's just a bit of a random comparison. I did think that, though, when I was like, he looks like Charles Dance.
Dance. Charles Dance.
Charles Dance, yeah.
That's Dance. Yeah, no, I think it's just unbelievable. Really, really good. Even if you take away all the themes and stuff involved, if you just watch it purely as a film, it's very entertaining. It moves along.
Sorry, are you suggesting that I've watched it not as a film?
Well, no, I mean, like, if you just put it on and you're not thinking about reviewing it, you're not thinking you're not thinking about the themes and stuff involved.
No, but they come through. I mean, but you know, they you don't have to search very hard.
No, you don't.
To be like, well, this is treading on interesting ground. Like, this is interesting. And the reason why they found it just repulsive is because it's effective. You know, I mean, that's what's going on. In the same way, you know, Texas Chainsaw comes around, they go, well, we can't release this, and then they go, well, which bit explicitly can you not release, which we can cut to then have it released? And they said, well, we can't find one specific scene. It's just a general feeling of unease throughout the whole thing that we can't quite pinpoint.
It doesn't need to be a gore fest, does it? I think at the time this was classed as a gore fest. And it's like, well, obviously now you're like, oh, God, really? But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we said about, there's no blood.
Yeah, there's
little to no blood. And it's not a gore fest. It's just extremely, what's happening on screen is just really unnerving. It's horrible.
But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, it's just a great film. Yeah, really good film, and you know, maybe we'll look at another Hammer or two, but really good.
Beautiful. Right. Until next time. Goodbye.
Cheers. Oh, mate, you know, please, you know, tell the fans where you can find FilmFloggers. Where can you find us?
You can find the FilmFloggers on Twitter, Instagram, and, you know, all the big hitting podcast platforms.
Please think about reviewing us. You know, we've got some good pods. We've got Apple Podcasts. We've got, what else can you review? Some Podchaser. We've got a bit of that.
Yeah, Podchaser.
You know, we're doing these 31 films in 31 days. It's very exciting. It's very stressful. It's, you know, we're doing it for charity. We're getting that involved. So just, you know, mate, just read those episode notes. Have a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. No, I agree, yeah.
Well, that's it, yeah. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, until next time.
Yeah. Right. Bye.
Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to What's Our Seat Number. If you're listening to this trailer, you're deciding whether or not you're going to listen to this podcast.
Good.
But chances are we've lost you already.
Wait, what? No, come on now. What,
well, I mean, it takes what, like 10 seconds for people to lose interest in things? I am not being defeatist. They've gone already. It's for now.
Well, now they are because we started arguing, so we've both sort of driven them out.
Well, go on then. Tell the dead air who we are.
Okay, the dead air.
The dead air.
The cadaver.
The people who aren't listening anymore.
I'm taking control. You introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing, right? It's going to sound more professional that way. Go.
Okay. I'm Johnny Gross. I'm a filmmaker and a film fan. and fanatic and obsessive.
Good. Very good. That was very well done. Very professional. You sounded like you're in control and almost like you know who you are.
All right, then. And who are you?
I'm Sai. I'm a 3D artist and a game designer, a film fan. I'm your brother as well.
Really?
So we're going to be talking about some of our favourite movies and hopefully some of yours as well. There's going to be trivia behind the scenes.
Do you want to tell the listeners why we've called this podcast What's Our Seat Number?
You really came to the right person with fielding this question because I feel that I can take this story and really bring it to life. Okay, so one time we went to go and see a film in the cinema and I asked, what's our seat number?
Fantastic.
Was it good?
Yeah.
I did it for you.
It's great.
If you want to hear more, you can check out the rest of our episodes. We're hosted by Podbean, but you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music or Audible, TuneIn, Alexa, Listen Notes, and now on iHeartRadio, Player FM, and Podchaser. So pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Please don't forget to review, like, and rate, and keep listening, because the more you listen, the more we'll be able to produce. Bye.
Ta-ta.